Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you very much for the invitation. As the CIDB, we are very happy to join this conversation and hopefully make a contribution that will assist us in moving forward. My first exposure to BIM was when I was still selling my services by the hour. I was charging by the hour, consulting. And we were trying to get some of our teams to work on international projects. And, our colleagues in the UK, in the Netherlands, and some work in Saudi, they were like, nope, you guys are good designers, but you'll waste a lot of our time because you are not working really as a team in a common data environment. You don't have rules, and that's what really sparked my first interest in this topic. And then fast forward a few years later, now with the regulator, which is the Construction Industry Development Board, hoping also again we will make some contributions also ourselves to assist the industry, at least from the regulatory or from the policy perspective. So I hope a lot of the colleagues, because I've seen many colleagues that I know here, have made contributions to some of the plans that we had proposed as a CIDB. Okay, we're moving forward. Yeah. I can work technology. In the consulting firm I worked for, they made me digital innovation leader. And I was saying to them, you chose the worst person to do it, because I'm a water engineer at heart. But it worked out because it got me interested also in other aspects that also came in very useful now when we are looking at the regulatory compliance. It's really a pleasure for us to be invited here, and also BIM Harambee creating this platform and community for us to be able to discuss these issues, hopefully move beyond talking, sharing experiences to more tangible actions that we can all own as an industry. I think that would be very useful. So this room is very serious. Huh? I think the challenges of the South African construction industry are well known, and we are working at solving some of these, but we have to acknowledge where there are challenges. Some of our challenges, and the biggest, I think, which really appeals, which this group is trying to solve, is around issues of poor coordination, procurement ambiguity, weekend over of projects between the various service providers and the owners of assets, and also uneven capacity. On the procurement front, again, another experience that we've had was when also clients try to use BIM to be malicious. Someone will say in procurement, in a project, I think it was in Guyana or somewhere, they are saying you must be BIM level 2, reside within this area and whatnot, because they are targeting one specific service provider. Hence, again, as a CIDB, we are of the view that we actually need to try and level the playing field as much as possible and clear up expectations and provide the support that would make our transition more easier, so that as clients implement, it is not also seen as another hurdle to stop people from participating. And then as a regulator, our CIDB, as a regulator where our involvement, we think, could create, lack of involvement could create greater risk, is when issues around unclear procurement. Because procurement really is at the center of some of the things that we do. If we don't sort out procurement, then a lot of the stuff that we do will just be pipe dreams. And then also market-driven fragmentation, where digital adoption is left only to the market, where if you are a good seller, you will convert people towards the product that you're offering. I don't think that will move us further quicker enough. And then also clients that are left behind. And also with our clients, I have this view. Infrastructure delivery, in my view, should be left to a few very good clients. But we are not going to get there. Everyone wants to manage their budget, so we also need to make sure that the clients are also well-resourced and they're not left behind, so that they can be able to implement some of these technologies. But our CIDP role, what we want to contribute to, is towards the uniformity, which is what we are established for, including in technology, and set clear national standards and be inclusive in that, and then also work with industry to set the direction. And I'm really hoping that a lot of the colleagues in the room, and I know a few did, contributed to what, as a CIDB, we crafted as a national BIM adoption strategy, where we are trying to create a more predictable national environment and not leave clients behind. How many of you contributed, actually? Let me ask that question, Dr. Ngozwana and team. How many colleagues did you consult here? Okay, we might need to revise it here based on that answer. And then also we are trying to strengthen public sector procurement to give clients a lawful and an appropriate way of specifying and evaluating BIM-related information content, and also, more importantly, where we also will need the support of industry is around the skilling of the pipeline. We are, in our own, trying to establish centers of excellence, TVET centers of excellence, support students to participate in competitions, and also sponsor postgraduate studies. But I don't think it will get us further at the rate that we need to. So again, we need to set up a clear skills pipeline and training initiatives and fund it appropriately if we are to succeed. And that's what our strategy calls for, and use this to pilot and measure maturity across the various clients that are in the sector. So that's what really we are trying to do with the strategy, is to just set clearer standards, better procurement support, and align the skills that are required for that. And also to achieve that, I do hope now people know about this party, setting up a national BIM steering committee. Because again, as a CIDB, we are 200 odd people with skills in many different areas. And I can say, probably in this room, there's 50, 100 times more expertise in this area than we do have at the CIDB. So we don't want this to only be government-led. So we are also inviting colleagues to participate, what have I done? To participate in the various working groups in our National BIM Steering Committee, which the CIDB provides just the program management support, financial support, any other support that is required, because this has to be led by the industry. And the role of this committee, it would be to structure practical things that are aligned to South African construction industry's delivery mechanisms, and also to clarify the strategy and assist as to how we should prioritize the resources that we want to put towards this. Currently, as a CIDP, in terms of our BIM adoption strategy, we've gotten it through the board and are now seeking partners to join the steering committee, and then they craft the implementation plan, we cost it, and we implement that. A few years ago, I would have thought as a country we'd be far further along, but we are not. So we do need to set a date, and we've chosen 2030 to get to a certain point where we can say there is a level of maturity, not just pockets of excellence within certain clients or certain construction companies or certain consulting groups. And our priorities first would be, yes, we are setting up the governance structures, the standards and guidelines, which I think will mostly be the work of the committee. Awareness and readiness, I think these sort of platforms. And the criticism I have for most BIM enthusiasts is that they talk amongst themselves and only amongst themselves. So we need to broaden the discussions to more infrastructure clients at universities. It mustn't become sort of like a, by the way, if you are interested. It sort of needs to be institutionalized in curricula, and also just people getting to know, we operate with a register of contractors, if you just remove the grade ones, of over 20,000. And in that, you will find good companies that are far more ahead. But you'll also find companies that are just, maybe 30 years behind or so when it comes to BIM or any digital transformation that is required in the construction industry. So we do need to improve with all the stakeholders, the issues of awareness and the readiness, and then we really need a phased approach if we are to be serious and are able to hold each other accountable for the priorities that we've set. So our approach as a CIDB, it has to be industry-led with the support of a regulator. If industry says we need to gazette this, we believe they know better, so we ought to be doing it. But it has to be practical, proportional, and inclusive. And I will tell you now, if you try to move a dial in the South African construction industry on something that has money, and you are not seen to be inclusive, you will be accused of gatekeeping and you will derail progress. I'll be answering to Parliament for the next 40 years as to saying, why did you try to include that? So the issues of inclusivity is quite important, even for those that are in it for the money. You know, it's very important for it to get adoption. Contractors go and complain everywhere and anywhere to saying, oh, CIDB is at it again. They are trying to create a market for so many companies only. And that really derails progress. So what success would look like for us as a CIDB, one would to have standards and guidelines for the country, and then procurement guidelines, because there's also, procurement is quite critical in this, and then competency framework, and then also people that can implement. So that, I think, would be what would see as success. But it's really hinging on the people in the room here and those that are willing to contribute, because like I said before, CIDB on its own is not going to get very far, in my view. So our call to action is that we need to get clients, industry, academia, have a shared leadership around these issues. We also need to set our priorities as a country, not individual companies or groupings, so that we can put money towards the initiatives that need funding. So I will stop there and take questions. I might not answer some, I might defer some, and I might also run away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr.
Bongani.
Bongani. Sorry, I just had a moment. Last year at the CIDB, you mentioned that there's only a 12% representation of youth in the construction sector. And now when you're speaking, you said scrap the grade 1 and let's focus on grade 2 going upwards. But then you also spoke about you're going to be accused of gatekeeping. Do you not think that it's kind of gatekeeping when you're saying scrap the grade 1 and let's focus on grade 2 going upwards? Because a lot of grade 1s are never offered. Okay, they not often offered contracts because they are overlooked because they're still starting. So how can they get to grade 2? Because every time they try to bid on a contract, they're always told you don't have any backing contracts from your previous work because they never had any. So how are you as the CIDB going to address all of that? Thank you.
Should I answer?
You can go for it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm not saying ignore the grade 1s, but I was saying grade 1s are the majority of the register. Am I recorded? Grade 1s are, am I recorded? Okay. Grade 1s are the majority of the register. And the type of initiatives and trainings you need for them are a little bit different to someone who's searching for efficiencies and effectiveness, you know. The training we're offering to grade 1s as a CIDB are construction management guidelines, simple things, how to establish a company, what are the basic tax requirements, But once a person starts getting involved more in projects, some of the initiatives, I wouldn't do construction management systems for a grade 1 company because it just doesn't make sense. Some of the things require hands-on experience. We launched, I think 2 weeks ago or a month ago, a certificate in construction management because we realized a lot of our grade 1s, both on the business management side and as part of that certificate, there is a specific module on innovations and technology, but you need people that have an appreciation, hands-on experience for you to invest that kind of, you don't want it to be purely theoretical. So grade 1s, they do get something very specific for their trainings, which are the basics of running a construction company, running projects, and all of that. But once you start talking technology and others, just get a project. And grade 1 is the best way for them to grow. 2 things really have helped. Contractor development programs and the compulsory subcontracting that has been happening in the various projects around the country. That 30% that many people shoot government for, So that's how they grow. And then when we said there's 12%, we are talking 12% of ownership of businesses. I do believe also, it's a personal view really, that sometimes it's always best to, I'm of the view that the likelihood of a construction business succeeding is when someone has had some work experience or extensive work experience in the construction industry. So I'm not very much fixated on how many grade 9 companies are owned by youth. I'm not actually expecting that. I'm expecting that, yes, within the lower grades, yes, they must be there, they must grow. But when you talk to the big companies, it's lots of money, lots of experience that is required. So, yeah.
Thank you for that very exciting revelation. I think I'm very enthusiastic about this call for partnership, as are many in the room. I think it's refreshing to hear a regulatory or statutory body actually trying to push the cultural transformation in the right direction. For me, this seems to be a nice start for a conversation that takes on board, EXA, SACAP, PROXA, SACPMP, the business forums, which are often blamed for some of the challenges that are faced by the industry, and the tertiary institutions, plus the general public. And I wish you every success in that, and I think many in here will be putting up their hands to be part of that discourse.
Thank you very much for that comment. And I must say also, as a CIDB, we are very open-minded, contrary to what some might believe. So we are also very much open to criticism on issues where people feel we are going the wrong way. Like I've said, amongst the 200 staff members that are there, probably engineers and architects and quantitative, probably I don't even constitute maybe 20%. We have accountants and all. So we really want to rely on a shared vision by the industry, because really a lot of the skills will reside there. So we have to provide the institutional support, the financial support where possible, and also try to maximize our regulatory authority where industry feels is necessary. So it has to be really our collective, what's the word, vision that drives this really.
Good afternoon once again, colleagues. I just want to find out, how are you going to strike a balance as a regulatory body that you don't hold those back, those that are ready and raring to go on this BIM thing? I'm saying this as well based on the example that you've made about the issue at Giani. Where I come from, we worked hard to convince the powers that be to give us the funds to implement this. Now, I'm worried that we might find ourselves facing regulatory requirements where we could be accused that if, for instance, as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, in fact, I've resolved that we will make it a mandate in our facilities and infrastructure delivery projects at Northwest University, that consultants that we engage with work in the BIM environment, and probably will push it down to also contractors. So how are we going to strike that balance that you don't hold us back, those of us who've got the money, the will, and the means to implement this? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very important question and a slightly complex question, but the answer for me and for the CIDB is very simple. Every time we want to do a change, whether in terms of the registration criteria or any other rule, we will always be accused of trying to favor a certain groupings or whatnot. But what we need to make sure, and that has been my philosophy, create an enabling environment that no one can complain to saying we've created an additional burden to create an elite group of consultants and contractors. I'll make an example. I do believe in big, what you call this, in large construction companies, that once you go grade 7 and above, it should not really be like a owner managed on a day-to-day. There must be systems in that business that will enable that company to run. So I wanted to introduce that as a mandatory requirement, to say you either get some form of construction management systems as a business, but the minute we put that in regulations, they said, we are increasing the cost of doing business. And they're like, no, it's fine. As a CIDB, through the BUILD program, we will create training programs, certification programs that are pretty much minimal to the contractor. So part of the roadmap must be able to ensure that when people want to attain the skill or want to attain the technology, it must not be impossible or it must not shock the system. There are those that are front ahead, and I would support that, but the minute a contractor says you've specified that a consultant must be able to work in a BIM environment, but it must be within 2 kilometers of your campus, I'll be the first to accuse you of trying to reserve a project for your friend. But there is enough consultants in the country that can have a fair competition on those kinds of projects. So it's really a balancing act, and us as a CIDB, as a developmental regulator also, we need to make sure as much as we can regulate to mitigate risk, have industry efficiencies and effectiveness, but we must also couple that with means of attaining those requirements that we are putting there. I hope I've sort of covered you, but I'm not against what you are proposing, definitely not against.
Thank you very much. We won't take any further questions. Thank you, Bongani, for always making time.
Thank you very much.